Now, let's talk about something that always stirs a little debate when we are mapping ISO standard to the PDCA cycle. Should clause 7, that is support, fall under plan or do phase? I did a 20-minute educating video on a deep overview of the main clauses of the standard from clause 4 to clause 10, and a couple of professionals came to meet me as to why clause 7 should be under do phase of the PDCA cycle and not the plan phase, stressing my 3-2-1-1 strategy. That is 3 clauses in plan phase, 2 clauses in do phase, 1 clause in check phase, that is performance evaluation, and 1 clause in the art phase. You can go to my YouTube channel to watch this video, but don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Now let's go to the main discourse of today. Most people will tell you that the plan phase in ISO 9001, 14001, and 45001 covers clause 4, 5, and 6. That is your context of your organization, the leadership, and the planning. Simple, right? However, some professionals stress it a little further, stressing that clause 7 should also be in the plan phase. Why? Because clause 7 talks about resources, competence, awareness, communication, and documented information, the RCACD that I spoke about. And you can't really do, that is the do phase, anything if you didn't plan your resources and competence and other things, right? Well, it sounds very logical till we start looking into the context of what ISO really means. Now, here is the issue. Planning is already covered in clause 4 to 6. Context for 4, leadership for 5, and worker participation for ISO 45001, and clause 6, that is where you have issues of tackling risk, opportunities, and setting objective. That is the real planning work. By the time you get to clause 7, you are no longer planning resources. You are actually providing and maintaining. Most times the standard will say the organization shall plan, implement, maintain, and continually improve, and that is across the requirement. Even in clause 8, that will all agree that it is also do phase, that it is do phase. There's no argument about that. There are requirements that says plan, implement, maintain, and continually improve. I don't want to go into that context now, but we are saying that the fact that there's a statement that says the organization shall establish, provide, maintain, and continually improve on the resources of the management system, however it has been written, doesn't mean that it should be in the plan phase, because such statement also applies to do. However, in this case, in clause 7 specifically, 7.1 that talks about resources, you are no longer planning, you are actually providing and maintaining them. So if we say that clause 7 should be planned, then guess what? Clause 8, operation, could also be called plan, because we design it back in clause 6. Remember that clause 6 is where we have our most designs that we have, addressing risks and opportunities, setting objective, and the likes. And that could take the whole PDCA model one big blurry cycle. The clean and correct interpretation is this: plan, clause 4, 5, and 6. Do, clause 7 and 8. Check, clause 9, and act, clause 10. That is exactly how ISO themselves map it in the Annex A. And if you look at the image I'm showing now, you will see exactly that clause 7 and 8 are inside the same circle. Inside the same circle, when you look at the PDCA cycle, from the plan to do, between plan and do, the clause 7 and 8 is there inside the same circle. So clause 7 is not an extra planning clause. It is an enabler, intermediary between planning and implementation, planning and operation. It gives you the resources, the competence, and the tools you need to actually operate in clause 8. So the next time you come across this understanding of clause 7 being in plan, just make them to understand that planning is thinking, support is enabling, and doing is executing. Just understand these basic principles, and the PDCA mapping will always make sense to every one of us. Simple, fun, and ISO made easy. So in my next video, I'll be explaining in more detail what clause 7.1 needs from you. Clause 7.1, which is resources, one of the clauses of support, clause 7, because we have 5 support system, 7.1 to 7.5. So we'll start by talking extensively about 7.1 resources. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and follow for more enlightenment videos like this. Thank you and God bless you.